Hi everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. Really appreciate the time you've taken out of your Saturday morning to visit with us. While we're waiting for some more people to log in, excuse me, I wanted to give you kind of an outline of our event today. First, we want to spend a little bit of time talking about the top 4 issues that we heard from you, our residents and our business owners, on the Citizen and Business Survey. When we're done with that, we'll go to live questions. We've got a few hot topic questions that we've been getting over the last couple of months, and we'll address some of those as well as take your live questions. So let's get started. First, I kind of wanted to say that we're all really sad to hear the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg yesterday. She was a judicial giant. She was a fierce advocate for women. I probably wouldn't be in the job I'm in if it wasn't for the strides that she made for women everywhere. And we're really sad for the loss to the entire world that she has presented to us. So we wish her family the best. So we'll just move on. We've gone through a lot this last year, especially with COVID. Our businesses some of them have closed. Some of them have only remained open for maybe 50%, and some people have lost jobs. So what I really love about Dunedin, though, is that we all come together, especially when we're faced with adversity. We rise up, we face it together, and I believe that our elected officials should do the same. We've accomplished great things in Dunedin. We're a nationally recognized city. We're a great place to live. And I thank you for the support that you've given me, and I'm really proud to be a part of who Dunedin is today as I enter, hopefully, into my last term as your representative. One of the things that I find really important is, while everybody is so focused on today with what we're going through with the pandemic, is we really need to not forget that we do have a future, a really bright and hopeful future. And so we can't forget about all the things that you've talked about that are important to you. We certainly don't want to lose sight of where we are today and what we need to do to address the issues we're all facing today, but we don't want to forget about all the things we want to do in the future. And so those are some of the things that I want to talk to you about today. So the top 4 things that were on our citizen and business surveys that we heard from all of you were very clear. Overdevelopment, traffic, affordable housing, and support for our business community citywide, not just in our delightful downtown. Those are issues that I'm still committed to. I want to make sure that we're all focusing on, that we don't lose sight of them while we're in the middle of this pandemic. So let's just get right to it. First item is overdevelopment. So overdevelopment is really important to combat because we know who we are, and we want to make sure that what gets built in the city really reflects Dunedin's kind of village vibe, I like to call it. Some of the things that we've done to help with that situation is we've lowered allowable building heights. We listened to you. You were really worried about everything overtowering small buildings. We've created architectural standards and an architectural review committee so that we have things that are compatible where they're being built. We've added required green space to try to space some of the buildings out. We've corrected some of our parking requirements, and we've added a public art requirement to commercial property. But we're not done yet, and we have so much more to do. We need to complete the revisions of our comprehensive plan. That's where we get that word compatibility. It's so important, and you might remember the project that was trying to be built on Alt 19 and Skinner, just on the backside of those historic homes on Victoria Drive. And it was like a 4 or 5 story building. That is not compatible, and those are the kinds of things we don't want to see happen. So finishing our comprehensive plan is really important. And we want to complete the overlay districts over the multifamily zoning properties. Why is this important? Because multifamily is generally townhomes or condos that are encroaching into our neighborhoods. And so overlay districts will help us make a better transition where you don't have that 3-story building overlooking your backyard. Traffic. Traffic is like the bane of our existence, right? You know, you might spend 20 or 40 minutes commuting to work. It certainly was something I used to spend 40 minutes going to work every day. When I started working in Dunedin, it was wonderful. Unfortunately, Dunedin has 3 state roads and 2 county roads going through it. And these are roads that get people from one side of the county to the other with no consideration on how it affects our community. So we're all living it. We all hate it. And, you know, it doesn't help that we are one of the most densely populated counties in the state. And I think it's roughly about 1 million residents in Pinellas County. But add the 5.6 million visitors that we have every year, with 90% of them coming by car. You're adding a lot of cars to the road that there's no way we could do anything to accommodate all of that. But we can make small fixes. And those are some of the things that we've been trying to do, especially improving safety. So we created the 7-day-a-week Jolly Trolley service to get some cars off the road, as well as the Clearwater Dunedin ferry service. We've added pedestrian crosswalks on Alt 19, worked with FDOT with that, as well as the more lighted crosswalk at Skinner and Trail. But we aren't done. There is a lot to do. FDOT is already working on some safety and congestion improvements for Alt 19. We have the State Road 580 corridor study that's coming that will identify safety and congestion issues. Many of you probably already know about the Skinner Boulevard improvements that we've been working on, as well as we're still working on trying to get a looper in our downtown that gets you from where you're going, where you've parked to where you're going. But the most exciting news on something that we've been working on for a long time, I sit on Forward Pinellas, and I've been working for about the last year and a half with FDOT on improvements to the causeway. As you know, anytime you go to Honeymoon Island, you can be sitting there for 40 to 60 minutes. We've been working with the head of the Parks Department at the state, and they are adding 2 lanes to get into the park. So 2 additional lanes of cars can get in there. They're also adding additional stacking inside the park to take some of that congestion off the causeway. Another thing that we're working on with the county is this intelligent traffic system, where there would be signage either on the causeway or on Alt 19 or Curlew that would tell you how long of a wait you have to get into the park, or if the park is closed. So you can decide before you get stuck into that traffic whether you really want to be there or not. And then there's going to be a number of safety things done to the intersection of Alt 19 and Curlew and some of the crosswalks there. So all of that is going to happen over the next year or 2. So we're really excited about that. Another thing you guys have talked about is affordable housing. This is always a big concern, especially when the economy is strong. You know, the housing stock gets all out of whack. Our property values in Dunedin are really, really strong, which of course is a sign of a healthy community. But it does price out the everyday resident. And we want to be a very inclusive community where we welcome all walks of life and all financial abilities into our city. We've done some good, consistent work in Dunedin. We have the San Christopher Apartments. We have the Shady Grove Townhomes, which is a Habitat for Humanity townhome community. We've got the Creek Park Townhomes, the Eco Village Townhomes, which of course is a net zero energy affordable housing project. We've done a number of single-family homes with Habitat for Humanity where we've partnered together. And then, of course, we've got Palm Lake Village, which is a county project. Dunedin didn't do it, but it's still important to our community because it helps house our seniors. And we've also just recently passed our affordable housing incentive program, which allows us to partner with developers, take the cost, some of the cost of developing out of their pocket and put it back into the person who's going to buy the property. And so we're really looking forward to utilizing that. And we're also now working on a new project, a 70 units of senior rentals off of State Road 580. Don't know if the project's going to go through yet, but we're using some of these tools that we have in the toolbox to try to get it off the ground. We're partnering with the county and the state financially. And so you might be asking why seniors? You know, why not families? Why not rentals for all ages? And I totally get that question. I have a son in college who I really hope can come back to Dunedin and find a place to live. It'll probably be in my house. But an interesting fact that you may not know is that Dunedin's population of 55 and older is roughly just shy over 50%. And we have one of the highest saturations of seniors in our community of anybody. And so with that, we know that we're a great place to retire, but there are people that have lived here for 30, 40, and 50 years. They're downsizing, they need an affordable place to go, and they're on a fixed income. Maybe they've lost their spouse and can't afford to maintain their home, and they need an affordable place to live. So that's why we're focusing on that first. It won't be the only thing we work on, but that's kind of currently what's going on with affordable housing. And then we have the business support. So, you know, before the pandemic, we heard very loud and clear that the businesses around Dunedin, A, they love being here, but B, if you're not in downtown, you don't get any attention. And you know, it's a good point, and it's something that we are really focused on. And again, I say we hear you loud and clear. We know that our downtown is the community's economic driver, and it has its own funding sources. So it's really up to us to make sure that we prioritize our budget to allot funding sources to other areas, so that all our businesses get equal support from the city. But now, you know, since we've been experiencing COVID, that in itself has really brought the entire city's business community together, and I'm really proud of that. It's brought our business community together, our government together, and of course our residents. So when that first happened, the first thing we started thinking of is, oh my God, what are we going to do for our residents and our business community? So we went to work to try to support everyone. Some of the things that we did were we did a Facebook Live event for our residents every time an emergency order changed, so that you would hear it directly from us, what our interpretation of what you needed to do and how you needed to stay safe. We started doing rapid Zoom calls with our business community. It was really important that, because they had specific orders they needed to follow, they wanted a one-stop shop place to go for their information, and our city became that for them. We went to bat for our businesses when the mask mandate came into focus. You know, it's hard for our businesses to tell somebody you have to wear a mask, and they needed some signage to say, this is what's telling us we have to do this. And so we went to bat for them in the county. At my suggestion, we formed a recovery task force made up of local businesses, folks from the chamber, from Visit Dunedin, from our Merchants Association, and of course our professional staff, to just start talking about what does the future look like? What are all the things we need to be doing? How do we make sure we keep our economy going? And they have been meeting really regularly. I want to say it's been weekly. Great group of folks, really happy with their performance and what they've done, and I thank them for everything that they've, you know, all the hard work that they've put into it. We hired a consultant, a financial consultant that would help our businesses navigate the federal funding options that they had to help support their businesses, and also the Pinellas Cares Act. And so far we've helped roughly about 300 businesses get money infused into their businesses so that they can keep going, that they can keep paying their employees and stop them from closing. We've partnered with Visit St. Pete Clearwater on a long-term marketing plan to show people that we're doing it safe here, and we need you to do it safe too when you visit. We've increased our funding for our annual facade program. You might ask what that is. That is a program where we partner with businesses who want to improve the outside look of their buildings. And many businesses have been doing that because either they've been closed or they've only been 50% open. And so they've taken this time to do some remodeling. And so we've increased our partnership level. I know you all have seen all the barricades that we've delivered all over town to allow businesses to, especially our restaurant community, expand either into their parking lots or out into the street of downtown. We've done that with very little red tape. You call one day and you get them delivered to you the next day. These folks at 50%, at one time they were 25% occupancy, couldn't even afford to open at that. So by having that outdoor seating, it was a safe way for everyone to still get out and about and still get money going into these businesses. And of course, we've increased our funding to the Chamber, who has kind of been the lead with their visitor center. Anytime that somebody comes in, they're the ones that answer all the questions for everybody. So we increased our funding there. But we're not done. Those are a lot of great things we've done in the last 4 months, but we are really not done yet. We have to keep this going for at least a year or two. We're going to continue doing those rapid calls with our businesses, the Zoom calls. We're going to expand our marketing plan, again, just to encourage people to visit, but to do it safely. And we need to gear up financially. We have a ton of special events in our city, and many of them cannot occur because we cannot group together en masse anymore. So we have to really think of new events, things that are that will still bring business, and we need to think of those events in other areas, not just our downtown. We've got Patricia Avenue and the Causeway and North Douglas. We really want to work with all the different groups and try to think of things that are safe, but we need to financially partner. If it means we've got to take barricades, if it means we need to close the street, we need to financially assist these folks to have these events, again, to keep business going. And we need to continue to work with Pinellas County Economic Development. We started working with them this last year on the Coca-Cola property. That's a property that should be yielding jobs. We're getting ready to lose jobs there. And so we need to keep the pressure on with the county to help us find somebody that will take over that property and provide jobs. So that's going to be our focus in the next coming year when it comes to the business community. And by doing all of these things, I think we're going to keep our community strong and really vital for years to come. So those were the top 4 things that you all said on your citizen and business surveys. And those are things that I'm definitely going to be focused on in the next 4 years. But now I've talked a lot, so I want to turn to our moderator, Eric Peterson, who is going to tell me what the questions are, if there's live questions. We also, I think as I mentioned earlier, have some kind of hot topic questions that we've been hearing about over the last couple of months that we've either been messaged about or whatever, and we'll just mix all those in together. So Eric, welcome, thank you for doing this. Why don't you give me a live question?
It's my pleasure, Mayor. Good morning, and thank you to all the participants joining us. So one of the live questions actually comes from Jeremy Reynolds. He would like to know, what would you like to do to address affordable housing and creating economic opportunities to support the affordable housing? Okay. Seems like Jeremy would like a few more specifics.
Okay, well, what we're already doing, as I mentioned earlier, was the program we're working on for seniors. What we're trying to do and how we're going to fund it is, at least we haven't voted on this yet, but the recommendation so far from our staff is to, we have a property that we don't need, and we're looking to sell that property and take the funding from that property and invest it into this affordable housing project and partner with the state and county with their funding along with the developer. That's just one project. I would really like to see a program started where when we have these homes around Dunedin that maybe maybe there's code compliance issues, maybe they're being foreclosed on. I would really like to see us maybe come in, purchase those properties, and rehab them, and then make them affordable houses in perpetuity. And there are many ways to do that. I know the county offers funding to do that. And so I think that's a way also to do neighborhood improvement. With our ordinance that we just passed, the affordable housing program, we'll be reducing impact fees to the affordable housing projects, and that will cut costs. If we get the opportunity to purchase land that we can then donate and take that cost out of the price to buy a piece of property, like we did with Eco Village and some of the Habitat for Humanity homes. If those opportunities arise, we definitely would do that as well. I think I answered that.
Very good. Let's do another question from
Sure.
the live session here. Julie Everett is asking if the city is going to move forward with reclaimed water.
Yes. I guess let me back up. It all depends. So I'm glad she brought that up, because a lot of people don't understand this. So, fortunately, I know way too much about reclaimed water than I ever should, because I was lucky enough to be on the Reclaimed Water Advisory Task Force for 4 years, well before I was elected, because we ran out of reclaimed water. And you kind of ask yourself, well, how does that happen? So whatever amount of water that you produce, if you produce 10,000 gallons of water, you get about 3,000 gallons of reclaimed back from that. And so it's about 1/3 of your water production that can go towards reclaimed water. So you're never going to cover every single person or every single household in your city. And that's been that way. I mean, it's just a formula. So having said that, we had tried to take Coca-Cola's effluent water, reclaimed water, to put back into the system so that we had hoped roughly 400 customers to the system. And they had so many environmental issues over there, we couldn't pull it off. That's just the honest truth. And now they're leaving, and we don't know who's coming in, and so that could take years. There are lines that run, reclaimed water lines that do run by neighborhoods. If you are on a neighborhood that has a line, you can request a hookup. If there's not a line, there is an enormous amount of cost. So I think we're willing to hook people up that are on existing lines, but until we get more supply, we're probably not going to build new lines unless we have more of the supply. I think that answered that.
Very good.
Uh-huh.
I think this time let's go to one of the hot topic questions. So we've consolidated down. Many residents have presented you with questions through your Instagram and through your Facebook account, and consolidated them down to these 4 questions.
Okay.
So the first is, what are you doing to improve the code enforcement issues from last year?
Okay, good question. I think it's really important to talk about how we got there. How did it happen? Because I think that was really everybody's big question. So during the recession, starting roughly in 2008, you all will probably remember that the banks really got hit hard. They were giving out mortgages to people that couldn't afford them, and which created then a huge glut of foreclosures. I want to say that Dunedin had something like 2,000 at any given time during the recession, which is a lot. I mean, it touched every single neighborhood of Dunedin. And what happened in those foreclosures is that the banks were not maintaining these properties and really let them go into disrepair. As you've been experiencing all the rain we've just had, the rainy summer, which is not unusual, some roofs were caving in, tree branches were falling on roofs, grass was way overgrown, pools were black, and pools with no fences. There were real life safety issues. And so we had an enormous amount of residents complaining about the lack of maintenance of these properties. So what we did is we kind of went after the banks. Not the residents or the people that owned them, but we went after the banks and said, you've got to maintain these properties because you're degrading the neighborhoods that they're sitting in. And so we went after them hard. But, you know, that's where the problem started. When the recession started to lift, no one internally sort of raised the white flag and said, okay, we've got a handle on this. Now we need to go back to the previous mindset of how we handle things. So that's kind of how we got to this place. I know I've been asked, why didn't the commission know? And I'll just explain it to you. It's very simple. You know, we're policymakers. We don't do the day-to-day operations. The city attorney, the code enforcement officers, and the code enforcement board, which is a decision-making board, manage all the code enforcement cases. The only time the commission, my colleagues, ever saw any of these cases really were when there was some type of a settlement that we had to approve. And I mean, that might have been once every couple of months. We would get a memo, say, hey, I've negotiated, the city attorney would say, hey, I've negotiated this thing, can you approve it? I can't get any more out of it. We would say yes, there would be very little question, and we'd move on. So it really did catch the entire commission by surprise. So what are we going to do to fix it? That's the question, right? The first thing we've done, and I think the most important thing we've done, is we've hired a new city attorney. We've hired all new code enforcement staff. We've hired a code enforcement supervisor, and we're in the process of hiring a new planning and development director. So anyone that's going to touch code enforcement today is going to be all brand new. And they are all going to have the right mindset, because that's what's important to us. And that mindset is about compliance, not punishment. So, you know, at my suggestion, we are rebranding this entire department from code compliance, or from code enforcement to code compliance, because that's our goal. We're capping the fines. We're creating a tiered fine system, so you're not getting fined the same as you would, like if you had a black pool and no fence around your pool. That's a life safety issue for children. That fine shouldn't be the same as if you parked in your yard. So we are doing a tiered fine system to be equitable based on the item that's presented. We're also creating an amnesty program where if there is a fine that's involved, and maybe it took you a little bit longer to fix whatever the issue is, and so you got a fine, but you've fixed it, you've complied, you just apply and your fine goes away. And then we've created these settlement agreements, and this is, I think, really cool because you know, a lot of people, as you know, it's hard to find housing stock, right, in the city of Dunedin. Anybody that comes here, the houses stay on the market for a couple of days and they're gone. But there are those kind of houses that have this sort of lien on them because they are in disrepair. And so we want to encourage people that want to buy in Dunedin, buy that house, fix it up. And if you fix it up in short order, we will wipe those liens away. So those are the kind of settlement agreements that we're working on. And what that does is it improves your neighborhood. So in summary, these are the facts. Political rhetoric is not the facts. And, you know, I tell you, don't take my word for it. Call my commission colleagues. Ask them what they knew and when they knew it, and if they were surprised. Eric, next question.
Let's stay with the hot topics because this particular one is near and dear to everyone's heart in the community. You know, regarding City Hall, of course.
Sure.
Is building a new City Hall really the right thing to do given the the uncertain economic future?
So good question. There's been a lot of talk about that, especially social media. I think the first and most important thing to say is that we haven't voted to build City Hall. That's a misnomer. We've never voted to do that. What we did vote was to complete the design work. And there were important reasons to do that. First, I would tell you is that the most important reason is that our folks in Washington, Congressman Bill Arakis, we've been working with him, and he's indicated that there could be stimulus grants in the pipeline for infrastructure down the road. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that the government wants to infuse money into projects that will then create jobs. They don't want to infuse it 3 to 5 years from now. They want to infuse it for shovel-ready projects, things that are ready to go right now. So if that does come, we want to be ready to be able to apply for those funds. Whether we're applying for, City Hall proper and it's shovel-ready, or we're applying for the road work that we're doing. It doesn't matter, but what we can do is save money in the penny and put towards City Hall in the future. Second, we had 2 years of public input, many meetings. And so our staff spent a whole lot of time. So not to actually finish the design, to me, it is a waste of all the money we spent on doing all of those meetings. So I just think finishing it doesn't mean we're going to move forward tomorrow. It just means it's done, it's ready to go for when we're ready to go. And again, it goes back to, we have to think about today, but we also have to think about the future. We have many things that we want to accomplish here in Dunedin. We've always been aggressive to accomplish big things here, and because we're a great place to live. So we don't want to forget the future. So, if you ask me, one of the things I've been asked so many times is, will my property taxes be raised to build City Hall? The simple answer is no. Absolutely not. So, the city has all these different funding, different funds that have pots of money into it, okay? Your property taxes go into the general fund. We also have this fund called Penny for Pinell Sales Tax. It's something you vote on every 10 years. It was overwhelmingly supported by you and many other taxpayers in the county. And the purpose of that fund is to spend on infrastructure. The really cool thing about that fund is it is a sales tax, so it's not coming from your property tax. It was put in place to keep your property tax low, and it's 1/3 of the cost of that penny is paid for by visitors. So let me repeat that. If you have $1 million project, the tax that you've paid on buying a computer, let's say you bought a computer for $500 or $1,000. Well, now it only costs $700. And I'm trying to give you the 1/3 thing. So every project we do, 1/3 of the cost of that is paid for by visitors. So your property tax has nothing to do with this fund. And it's a great fund to have, and I'm really glad it's been supported very widely across the county. Another question I've been asked about City Hall is, why do we need it? Well, our employees, we are, you may not know this, but we are one of the largest employers in the city of Dunedin. We have something like 375, I'm ballparking it, employees that support the local economy for sure. 25% of those employees are displaced right now. They're all over the city. They are in places where it would normally be rented out to the public, so we're losing rental income, which would, of course, go toward what your property tax pays for. We're also leasing space at the tune of almost $200,000 a year that your property tax pays for. The municipal services building itself was 63 years old and got torn down because it was riddled with mold, and the sheriff wouldn't even have his employees stay there. The current city hall that we're all sitting in has a big metal pole supporting the roof. and that's been there for about 2 years. So, providing essential services is the function of this organization. And having a place, a one-stop shop for you to go where you're not running around everywhere is important. And that, all of that costs money. And so that actually helps keep your taxes down. So one of the questions too is, can we afford it? I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm going to say that right out. I don't know. I don't think any of us know at this point. We have a lot of projects in our penny fund that we're working towards, and we just spent many budget meetings going through all of it and moving projects out. The one thing we are going to start doing, and really at my suggestion, you may or may not know this, I have a career in economic forecasting before I was an elected official, and one thing I really know for sure, it's important to listen to the professionals. So what we're going to do is every single quarter, we're going to look at our budget. We're going to look at the trends of what's happening in the economy, the CPI, real estate transactions. Is commercial getting hit harder than residential? How is the penny going to be affected? How are property values being affected? And all those, where are the interest rates? All those key indicators that say, where is the economy going? We're going to have our financial experts come in. We're going to have our finance board come in. And we're going to have this really tough look at our budget every quarter. Does it tell us we need to stop spending? Don't do this project? Then don't do it. We won't. We'll move it out. We won't spend money that we don't have. And so as we're looking at those things, it's going to tell us whether we can do this project this year, next year, or the year after. We'll have to weigh it against the lease payments and all the other costs and things that we're going to do. But the vote we've taken really was pretty simple. It was just to finish the design. So in summary, these are the facts. Political rhetoric is not facts. And again, I urge you, don't take my word for it. Call my colleagues, ask them for what they voted for. Eric?
All right. Mayor, so we've had dozens of people in both your Facebook and Instagram accounts, and even this morning, 2 or 3 more people have asked this question. Okay. Sharon Herman, Sophia Shapiro, they're asking, do you support the purchase of the Douglas Hackworth property?
Yes. Yes, I do. Probably more than you could, more than I could even express it if the smile on my face isn't telling you. I absolutely support purchasing that property. It's a complicated thing, and there's a lot of moving pieces to it. But the really great thing about approaching this kind of situation is that that if you accomplish it, you've done something for future generations forever. So that's just really important to me. Those are the great projects. They're really hard, but you're doing something really good for the community. I know I have been asked, how do we get there? There's been some frustration on people's, minds about it. So I just want to tell you what I know about how it all started. So the fall of 2018, the family, not the estate, but the family did approach us about the idea of purchasing the property. And of course, everybody was, excited. Now, it's also important to know that Douglas Hackworth was still alive, and the family asked that we, didn't talk about this publicly, and we wanted to, honor their wishes. So our staff, from those conversations, went to the county and kind of created a little working group, to try to figure out how this might be done. Our staff approached the Southwest Water Management District. Here's something I don't know that you know, but the Gladys Douglas Hackworth property is 44 acres. And then there is the lake, which is owned by SwiftMud, the water management district. That's another 54. So we approached SwiftMud to see if we could get some kind of deal to have use of that lake in perpetuity. And if that is the case, and we can preserve the other 44, that's 90 some acres of open space and a water feature of use. So that's a whole other thing. That's really exciting. Anyway, so we were in the process of that, and then each one of our commissioners were briefed by our staff, and our staff ordered a appraisal of the property, the 44 acres. And that appraisal came in January of 2019. We were all given that appraisal, and the appraisal was done based on highest and best use. You can do appraisals in different ways. It was done on highest and best use. 11.7 million was the value that it came back with. So the county proceeded to then submit the property through their own evaluation matrix, if you will. And that evaluation matrix was, that started in roughly April or May of 2019. This took roughly 9 months. Don't tell me I can't tell you what all they do, but they do have a Parks and Rec Advisory Committee like we do, and it did go through them. But it scored number one on their environmental side of it for preservation. So that was really cool, very excited. But it took a long time to happen. But at some point or another, the county questioned the viability of the entire property, purchasing the entire property. I don't want to speak for them and say why. So they tended to focus on the front 33 acres. The county took that matrix that they did, and they presented it to their commission, I think in January of 2020, somewhere around there. They followed up by getting their own appraisal of the 33 acres, but they did their appraisal based on recreation and open space, not highest and best use. They came up at 5.2 million. Of course, at this point, this is when COVID hit. So their appraisal didn't even come out until May, I think, of 2020. But COVID had already hit in March. I can tell you, as a mayor of a small town, I never had a free moment in the day to think about much of anything except what was happening right in the moment when COVID first hit. What's happening to our visitors? What's happening to the health of our community? How can we help? So everybody was focused on those things, as they should have been. I can't imagine how the county felt, leading a million people. But for whatever reason, there was a lack of communication between the estate, not the family, but the estate and the county. Not for lack of trying, but there was a lack of communication. And because of that, the estate went ahead and put the property under contract. It's really important to know that our city was never in contact with the estate. We were only in contact with the family. It was the county that was in contact with the estate. And none of us knew this was going on. None of us. So kind of where do we go from here? Because the property is under contract, we have to wait until their due diligence period is done. It's a 60-day period. I think the deadline is October 17th. But we're confident that we feel that the land use and zoning, the amount of developable property, the environmental things, we're confident that we'll have a shot at making an offer. In the meantime, our city manager and our county administrator is actually communicating now together as a team with the estate. And they've assured us that if there is not a deal to be done with the developer, that we will be the first person of contact. So that's exciting. Our city manager and the county administrator are meeting weekly to come up with an offer. When the due diligence period is over, the goal is to immediately get something together before the county commissioners and before our city commission to try to have some approvals. So you're probably saying, okay, well, how are you going to pay for that if you're talking about, you know, budgets and those kinds of things? So good question. I think I can only guess that all of our commissioners are asking that question. So from the city's perspective, our staff has sat down and looked at that penny fund that I talked to you about earlier. And they have suggested that we move one or two of our projects out of this 10-year round of penny, one of which is the parking garage. And so we still want to have some money to purchase land for parking, but we're willing to go without that parking garage to save 44 and ultimately 90 some acres, because you know what they say about, you know, paving over paradise to be a parking lot. If this move happens, it would likely give us around $2 million that we can put towards the purchase. The county has about $15 million in their preservation fund. They're not going to use it all on this one property. We are certainly probably not going to, you know, pay full. We're certainly not going to pay what the developer is asking, and you know, we're probably not going to pay full value either. But we recognize that we want to honor Gladys's wishes, and we recognize that there is value, there is money from this sale that will go to a number of really important 501c3s in the area, and we recognize that as well. And then we, of course, will apply for grant funding from the state, Florida Communities Trust, and probably a few others. We've been very successful in the past. We have gotten that for Weaver. We have gotten that for the additional 8 acres for Hammock. So, you know, I don't see a struggle in getting some portion of the purchase price from the state. It might take us a couple of years. But I think it's all well worth it, given it's so large of a piece of property, probably the biggest piece in North County. So, again, in summary, these are the facts. No political rhetoric. Again, if you don't believe what I have to say, call my colleagues. They'll tell you what they knew and when they knew it. I'm really excited about this project, though. Eric?
Great. You know, we'll just go to this one because it's been really scattered across social media. And, you know, even Piddler Martin asked this question this morning, so I'll try and paraphrase it. Mm-hmm. You know, the city appears to be overspending or spending excessively. Can you address that?
Sure. So, you know, I don't discount anyone's feelings about spending. It's a very personal thing that each person has of how they spend and how they look at things. So I think listening to folks is really, really important, and acknowledging their feelings, you know, when they're talking about it. So the city met, 4 times over the summer to work through our budget. We removed all raises from city employees. They're not getting any raises. We moved out many projects to try to cut spending. We stopped spending in the budget we actually were just in. So we really stopped spending before we even approached this next budget. So the general fund is kind of where your property tax goes. You know, I talked earlier about the different funds. And as I've been going through the budget process, what I found in the general fund, and I know there was talk this week on social media about the property value increase. Excuse me. So yes, there was a $931,000 property value increase citywide. So I just wanted to sort of break that down for you. So 137,000 of that money is from new construction. And so when I say new construction, that means it's not impacting you. You are not paying that. That's a brand new project that just came online and paid their taxes. And then another 117 of that is commercial. So if we just look at total residential properties, that's $677,000 increase, right? Now you divide that by the number of households we've got. We're just shy of under a average of a $40 increase per household, depending on the size of your house. So let's be clear. It's an increase. Yes, it is. I get it. But it didn't come from a millage rate increase. It came from improving your property values, which is a sign that really shows a strong community. I think the increase, this happens sometimes. It happened last year, it happened the year before. But I think it's a reasonable increase. So that fund, the general fund that I was talking about, let's talk about what it gets spent on, because that's important to know. It doesn't get spent on City Hall or the property that we're talking about. 35% of the general fund gets spent on public safety. That's fire and police. 27% of it gets spent on the maintenance of parks and recreational programs. 15%, only 15% gets spent on general government. 8% gets spent on library. 6% gets spent on public works. 3% gets spent on planning and development. 1% gets spent on miscellaneous. The biggest thing that gets funded out of the general fund is public safety, which I think is really important to put in perspective when you're talking about an average of a $40 a year increase on your taxes from Dunedin. And here's another thing that I think is important. How do we stack up against other cities? So I did this quick math. Again, general fund, because that's where your property taxes go, and that's what people have been talking about. Dunedin spends on average $839 per person in the city, based on our population. So I thought, all right, well, is that a lot? I don't know. Doesn't sound like a lot, but let me go look. What are other people doing? So I just looked at all the other cities in North County in this area because they're the most similar. So Safety Harbor spends $901 per person. Oldsmar, $1,003 per person. Tarpon Springs, $1,047 per person. And Clearwater, $1,300 per person. We are the lowest per person spend in all of North County. So I broke it down even more. Dunedin doesn't have a police department. Safety Harbor doesn't have a police department. Oldsmar doesn't have a police department. We have a hired out city attorney. So does Safety Harbor. So does Oldsmar. So we compare from a basic government perspective the most in our general fund, and they still are spending more per person than we are. So again, yes, we did have a small increase to the value of the property, but compared to other communities, I really think that for the amenities that we have here, we've done a good job. The thing I also want to say is personally, budgets and economic forecasting is in my past professional life. It's what I did for a living. I studied Florida economy regularly. I understand that we need to be cautious. I really, really do. I, nor my colleagues, I think, have ever been a tax and spend bunch. We've always been conservative. Here's a few numbers in the past 14 years since I've been on the commission. Our general fund expenses, again, where your property tax goes, they've only gone up 15% in the last 14 years. I think that's pretty good. That's 1% a year on average. So I think we've done pretty well there. Our millage rate today is 7% less than it was 14 years ago. So I just think we have a long track record. The entire commission, all the commissions that have been here since at least since I started, we've always been cautious. We've always been conservative. And we've got an overall really good track record. So again, using words like excessive, I don't think apply here. These are facts. Again, political rhetoric isn't. Don't take my word for it. Call my colleagues. Ask them what they think. Find out why they supported the budget. This is just my point of view. I don't want to speak for them, but I do think getting their opinion is important.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to a question that was live this morning. This comes from Sharon Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
She'd like to know, what is the plan for Highlander Pool?
So, one of the things that we did in this budget over the summer, thank you, Sharon, was we originally planned to, in this 10-year window of the penny, was to replace the pool. But in reviewing our budget, we had to make some hard choices. So we have decided not to replace the pool in this 10-year window budget, and instead we're going to make some significant repairs. Right now, I believe we've got budgeted, I don't know that this is what we're going to spend, but we've got budgeted about $2 million for significant repairs. Apparently there's some ground settling under the pool, so they want to do something to stabilize it. We've had to continually invest money into the pool because it's old. It's 40 years old. Frankly, I remember going to that pool when I was in high school, right up the road at Dunedin High School. So that was back when it had cover. That thing went away a lot. I think it blew away in one of the local storms. But it's been around. It's anybody that has a pool at home, how pools get. I mean, they can cost you a lot of money to repair. So right now, that's the plan, is to do some significant repairs work to it, and we've got budgeted about $2 million over our 10-year window of penny.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor, I believe that we've touched on everything that we've seen come across live this morning.
Okay, I did see a question, and I don't know where it was. I tried to look for it this morning, and I don't know who asked it. Somebody had asked. Somebody had said, and I'll just paraphrase, and I don't even remember the person's name, and I apologize for that. They were saying, we do a lot of beautification in the downtown, and why, when are we going to do beautification projects or improvement projects in other areas of the city? So it was a great question, and I think that's really important. We actually, we have 6 EPIC goals. One of our EPIC goals in the city is to make visual improvements citywide. And so it addresses the exact concern. In this next budget, we do have some money invested in beautifying the Patricia Avenue corridor to support, do some things to support local businesses, but also to beautify. And I think that's really, really important. We are looking at some entryway features in different places in our city to beautify. But we also have, a neighborhood improvement program that allows neighborhoods to come together and get grants from the city to do entryway features into their neighborhoods. So if that's something that you want to take a part of, we help with that. We don't pay for the whole thing, but we do sort of a partnership program with that. So those are the things that we are that I know of off the top of my head that we have coming. But I think we're understanding that we need to invest in all areas of Dunedin. So thank you to whoever asked that question. And there was one other one I saw, something about special events. They wanted to know what was going to happen with the fall special events. And so what I know right now is that our Parks and Rec staff, our team, Jory, and a number of other people are working on a plan for the fall. Events will not be the same. A number of them have been canceled. I know the Celtic Festival has been canceled. I believe the Art Harvest. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I'm not sure about that one. A number of folks have canceled their fall events, and because of the crowding, everybody wants to be safe. So we're trying on our end to work with our local business community and any of these promoters to find safe ways of maybe reworking these events. I don't know that we're going to have old-fashioned Christmas. We might have something that's sort of like every Friday night during the month of December. I don't know, but they're certainly working on the plan, and they're working on that plan with the local businesses that get the most benefit from those events, as well as trying to figure out something that would be great for the families that come enjoy these things and our residents. So we're working on it. I just don't have all the answers on it yet. So those are the two things that I remembered seeing that I haven't heard since then. So is that it on questions, Eric?
No, actually. So to Kelly and Jeremy, no, we're not skipping you. We're actually getting to your question right now.
Okay.
So Kelly asks, she's heard, and perhaps others have heard, that chatter that paid parking is going to rear its head again, or maybe on the table again. Can you speak to that?
Not under my watch. That's the answer.
Very good.
Sorry, I don't need to expand any further other than no way.
Hell no.
Hell no.
All right, very good. Also, from Kelly as well, what is your stance on luxury condos? I think the concern is, they seem to be proliferating, and what is in our means to be able to slow this down if we can?
I wish I knew. It's not anything I'll be able to afford to live in, that's for sure. I told my husband that, I mentioned earlier, I worry about my son coming back and being able to find a place to live, and I frankly think I'm going to let him move into our house, and we're going to take some equity out of it, let him pay the mortgage, and we're going to go buy some little small tiny home somewhere because I'm trying to figure out how my family's going to afford it. I don't know how people afford some of these condos. I really just don't. My family works pretty hard, as I think most of Dunedin does. But the problem is that the property value, as high as they are, is a function of the economy. And so you buy property high and then you build whatever on top of it, it's going to cost more money. Even if it isn't a luxury condo, it's at least $500,000 or $600,000. I can't ever imagine buying a home at that value. That would be, I think we paid $155,000 for my house, and that was a stretch. So, and that was 20 years ago. So it's a function of the economy. It's not anything that the city can do. We don't have authority to tell people what they can build. The zoning dictates, and it's in general. It's residential. We can't tell somebody, well, you have to build affordable housing on that residential property unless we own it. If we own it, we can tell them, but we can't tell them what they can and can't do. All we can do is sort of offer incentives for them to build what's more affordable. And it's funny because, it's not really funny, but it's ironic that what people call affordable housing today is, $250,000. I couldn't afford that. And so I'm just saying, so I appreciate the question. And I understand it. I just don't know that we have anything in our control to do it other than to try to offset it with some more affordable units, and that's how we're trying to address it.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, Jeremy Reynolds has asked.
Well, we've got 3 questions from Jeremy. Jeez. We
like the participation. So his question is: should we, the city, hire a professional grant writer?
I don't think that's a bad idea. I really don't. There's 2 positions I'd actually like to see. I'd love to see a professional grant writer, or at least have one, on contract that's solely focused. And if you were to hire a professional grant writer, it's just kind of like having a special events coordinator. That person has to prove that they can pay for their job by the amount of grants they get. That's how it works. You have a job as long as you're bringing in enough money. And you could have a contract person on staff, really, that says that. And there's unique ways to do that. And I'd absolutely like to see that. I also think we need to have a permanent traffic engineer, given all the traffic issues we have. But right now, we've put all hiring, other than a couple of things that are already in the works, like that planning and development director, on hold, because we're not even giving our employees a raise. So hiring anybody at this moment is, not going to happen.
We have one other question that I think we're probably going to want to take offline and answer. So Larry Garrison has a concern with the ADA accessibility of the parking garage, but I think that question is probably we'll take that offline and probably.
I can respond to it. Larry's been asking this a long.
We have enough information for it? Okay.
I think I do. Larry's been concerned about this for a long time, and I really appreciate her comments. The unfortunate thing is we can't change the garage. The garage is the way it is. It meets all legal ADA requirements. It may not be ideal, but it meets all legalities. We've had 3 attorneys look at it. But I do understand her comments. And I think that's, what's really important about elected officials. Just because you meet something legally doesn't mean you shouldn't still listen to the concern. Because, just because it's legal, sometimes it just doesn't feel right. And so that's where, people like myself and my colleagues come in, where we put the human element to it. So, if we were ever going to build another garage, I think first thing I would do is invite Larry and come talk to us about what you hated about that garage and the fact that you had outdoor parking for ADA. And I know that wasn't all of her issues, but so I think that's what you do. You kind of, what do they say? Make your mess your mission. I'm not saying that was a mess, but I'm trying to say that you can always find value in what people have to say and what their concerns are, and I always do find value in what Larry has to say, even if we still followed all the rules. So thanks, Larry, for the question.
Mayor, I believe we've touched on all the questions here. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we wrap up? Thank
you, Eric, and thanks for doing this for me. It would be too hard to watch that computer and see what people are saying. Really, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I always like getting the questions and answers and having information. I really believe in being transparent and honest. You may not like what I have to say, that's okay. But I think in delivering a message, it should be truthful. And I so love the city that I serve. I'm so proud to have served here. I'm proud to be your mayor. There's nothing better than being the mayor of the place you grew up in. It's the place where I've raised my child and had a 31-year marriage. It's a place where I've met my best friends. And it's a place where I learned to focus on others rather than myself. Everybody knows, I think I'm almost 55 years old, so you learn a lot over your period, your life, and I've learned a lot from this city. And I think this city has really inspired me to be a better person. So, couldn't get out of this without a tear or two. I look forward to all of your input on social media every day. People ask me, how do you put up with that? But, in my mind, I love it. Because, it's not always pleasant, but I love the interaction. I love the feedback. I love being able to communicate with people. And I want that accessibility out of my elected officials at the county and above me. And I just feel like it's really important, and because we're such a small town, having just that interaction and that accessibility is really important to me. And that's the truth. So I hope that you will trust in me one more time for our final hurrah for my last term. And, I hope I can earn your vote, and let's work together to make it done even more delightfully different. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us.